6:01 or 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the village board meeting of Monday, February 6th to order. And we will start with roll call. I believe we have 2 members on Zoom. Okay. We will start with roll call. Trustee Booker.
Here.
Trustee Woods. Here. Trustee Owens.
Here.
Trustee Thompson. Here. Trustee Quirk.
Here.
Trustee Johnson.
Present.
And President Montgomery. So we have unanimous attendance. We would invite our audience to join us with reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which
It stands,
one
a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we go to persons desiring to be heard, I would just like to welcome our newest trustee in person. His first meeting, Trustee Woods, was virtual, so we welcome you here on this evening. Do we have any persons desiring to be heard?
We have one Jim Cashler, 8543 North 64th.
Chancellor, if you want to come up.
Sure.
Just here and stand, she's gonna give you the mic because we're on Zoom, so to make sure that people can hear, that may be clear.
Well, I'm not sure if this is the place for it, but understand that there was a request for a car wash being put on 63rd and Brown Year Road. Is that something I should speak about here, or is that something to come back to the planning commission?
It's coming to the plan commission, I believe, when March.
It'll be March 13th. There will be a public hearing at the Plan Commission. The applicants have submitted their proposal for review. It would occupy the space of the former, or of the family table restaurant, if it were to be granted.
Would it be granted on that night, or was there the discussions moving forward?
So there would be review at the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission is a recommending body, and whether they recommend for or against, it goes to the village board, typically the following week for final action. So there would be 2 meetings, at least as it relates to the land use. Then there would be other meetings as it relates to architecture and landscaping if approved.
Okay. Thank you. I guess I'm opposed to it for many good reasons, as
And I would suggest too, if you have further questions that you might have prior to that meeting, you can always contact me.
so it could be valuable for our community to have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just a minute.
All right. The next item on our agenda, item number 4, is elected official and staff reports, and those are in your packets. And I applaud, I didn't get your last name, but you must have read through the packet, or somebody read through it and shared with you, because a lot of information, a lot of the information that goes on in the village comes out in our packets. And so some people do take time to read it, sometimes they don't, and we find out later, when was that? And it was in the meeting. So we appreciate you coming in early, but now you got time to come back.
And President Montgomery, we can always take written comment if you're unable to attend that meeting. If you do want to forward written comment to be entered into the record, we can also take that as well.
Any comments or questions about the reports that were in our packet from elected officials or staff? If not, we will move forward with our, and I need to make sure Trustee Booker or Trustee Quirk, do either one of you have comments about the elected officials or staff reports?
Nope.
All right. All right, thank you. Then we have our consent agenda, which consists of our minutes from our January 3rd meeting, to accept the December 2022 vouchers, consider appointment of trustee Woods to the Tourism Commission, consider issuing requests for proposals for building inspection services, and consider approval of the North Shore Municipal Court Agreement. All of these are in our packets. Any questions? Trustee Owens.
Yeah, I just had one question about the RFP for the building inspector services. What's the current cost for that?
So really the cost is 85% of permit revenue. So there's no additional fees unless we request added services, which we have not done very much throughout the year, such as our inspectors sitting in on a pre-construction meeting, or the health department needing special inspection services for public nuisance, something like that. Otherwise, it's strictly based off of the permit revenue, of which they get 85% currently. So if you pull the fence permit, that fence permit, or a building permit rather, and it costs $70, Safe Build is getting 85%.
I know. All right, but do you know what we spent last year on it? Just an idea ballpark.
I would tell you our revenue probably came in at about 90,000.
Yeah, we made out really well. Before that, we used to have an internal building inspector. And I would say the break-even point with salary and benefits is probably close to 140, 150. So if we bring in 115 permits, we would then pay out 120, which is about what it costs when we include all the benefits. So last year would have been a good year to do it the way we're doing. But then there could be other years where we have a really big project and we would lose out on potential revenue by not having an internal building inspector.
Thank you.
Other questions? And these are items that will come back to us once the work is done for final approval. If there are no other questions, can we entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda? Been moved by trustee Owens. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by trustee Thompson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Under new business, we have two resolutions that I will be reading, and while I'm reading, I'm going to ask the young men to come and stand here. The first person we have is Cole Campbell. If you want to come and stand, so we can see all of your badges to see how hard you work to earn all of those. And I'm going to read this resolution, and it's resolution 2301. It says recognition for Cole Campbell becoming an Eagle Scout. Whereas Cole Campbell achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts of America's highest rank, on August 31st, 2022, after serving as a member of Troop 194. And whereas Cole has been a Brown Deer resident for the past 18 years and has attended Brown Deer schools for his entire life. And whereas for his Eagle Scout project, Cole partnered with Pastor Ellen Rasmussen and the Brown Deer United Methodist Church. Cole made sensory boards for their daycare, Angel Care, to help the smaller children depict different textures and feelings with their hands and feet. He also made a rotating bulletin board to be placed in the church lobby. The bulletin board is being used for announcements. And whereas Cole was a scout for 6 years and learned many life lessons, including how to lead, listen, work in groups, operate independently, ask for help and plan, Cole learned many things as a scout on how to be community-minded and look out for others. Scouts BSA as a whole created exceptional followings, the Scout Law, Scout Oath, and Scout Motto. Cole believes every Scout and human being should live by these. Cole plans to continue to impart these philosophies on his family and friends as he continues to move through adulthood. And whereas Cole didn't really have an inspiration to pursue becoming an Eagle Scout, instead he had a goal that he wanted to reach. Throughout his 6 years of Boy Scout, he didn't see any scouts or leaders that looked like him, as he was the first Black Eagle in Troop 194. As a young man living in a suburb of Milwaukee, he knew that it needed to change, and he wanted to be that change. He wants to be the start for many other Black Scouts to follow. And whereas Cole has shown tremendous leadership skills, as well as a caring, helpful attitude, as he plans on returning to Troop 194 to check in, offer advice, and encourage younger Scouts to continue their service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Brown Deer Board of Trustees proclaim their recognition and publicly congratulate Cole Campbell for his humanitarian efforts becoming an Eagle Scout, passed and adopted by the Village Board of the Village of Brown Deer the 6th day of February 2023. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I move that we approve the resolution.
It's been moved by Trustee Thompson and seconded by Trustee Owens, and we will do a roll call vote because it's a resolution. Trustee Booker,
Aye.
Trustee Quirk,
Aye.
Trustee Woods,
Aye.
Trustee Owens,
Aye.
Trustee Thompson, Trustee Johnson.
I'd like to hear the young man speak first. if possible. We have a lengthy resolution, and obviously to hear what he has to say if possible.
You gonna speak?
Okay. Aye.
Unanimously here. Now, would you like to have a few words?
Yeah.
There's always one.
Hello everyone, my name is Cole Campbell. I can admit that scouting was not an easy journey for me. I often feel like Tuesday meetings were approaching and I had to make that hard decision if I wanted to attend the meeting or not. But as I got older and busier, I found myself pulling away from scouting and I knew that needed to change. My angle was always to become an Eagle Scout. I just needed to get my head on straight. And my family always encouraged me to continue and stay committed to exploring the possibilities. And I accepted that challenge. Obviously today I got there, I got Eagle Scout. Scouting taught me so much as a person. It gave me lifelong friends that I made memories with that I always carry with me. Josh is one of those people. Scouting has equipped me with the skills, experiences, and friendships that I need. And I look forward to applying them in my everyday life. Thank you, guys.
Over here, and then you can get us in the background. I mean, if you want to.
Yes, we do. Need trustees to get in. I use the president. Go that way, just a little bit. There you go, perfect.
All right. And we get to do this twice tonight. Wonderful. So we have resolution 2302, recognition for Josh. Josh, is your last name pronounced Gum?
Yes.
Okay. Gum, becoming an Eagle Scout, and we'll invite you up. And this says, whereas Josh Gum achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts of America's highest rank, on November 21st, 2022, after serving as a member of Troop 194. And whereas Josh has been a Brown Deer resident for the past 18 years and has attended Brown Deer schools for his entire life. I'll make sure that's on. Whereas for his Eagle Scout project, Josh made a wood shop table for the Brown Deer High School. Over the years, he also helped the troop clean up Village Park after the fireworks, rake leaves for people who weren't able to, and planted trees at Brown Deer County Park. And whereas being a scout taught Josh many life lessons, including how to communicate with others and how to lead people of all ages. Originally, he was a shy child who didn't go out of his way to interact with others, but now you would have never guessed it. And whereas Josh's dad was probably his biggest inspiration for becoming an Eagle Scout, as his dad had supported Josh and assured he would stay on track. And whereas Josh has shown tremendous leadership skills, as well as a caring, helpful attitude that will help serve the Brown Deer community and serve the Brown Deer and other communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Brown Deer Board of Trustees proclaim their recognition and publicly congratulate Josh Gum for his humanitarian efforts becoming an Eagle Scout, passed and adopted by the Village Board of the Village of Brown Deer this 6th day of February 2023. We have a motion to accept this resolution.
I move that we accept the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Thompson and seconded by trustee Woods. And we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Booker,
Aye.
trustee Quirk,
Aye.
trustee Woods,
Yes.
trustee Owens,
Aye.
trustee Thompson,
Aye.
trustee Johnson, President Montgomery, aye, unanimously approved. So resolved. And we will give you an opportunity to have a few words.
I didn't have anything prepared. I just like to thank the board for giving me and Cole this opportunity to be recognized by you guys. Can't wait to see what Scouts has to get to bring in around the year. I didn't say, but I've been in Scouts probably since first grade. I was a Cub Scout, and then I crossed over with Cole in 2016. And ever since you crossed the road bridge. Ever since I crossed the bridge, I saw all the older Scouts in my troop, and I was like, yeah, I want to be a Scout. My dad kept me on that path. I was the same as Cole. As I got older, work and friends got in the way, and he kind of just helped me stay where I wanted to be and helped me finish what I wanted to do. So I thank you guys.
You can stand.
Yeah, if you don't own, can I get the parents up there?
Take your picture, you see how the time it doesn't have there?
You want to get that picture?
Yeah, I can see what's there.
Sure. You want to get in there?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Move the chairs.
Yeah.
We're good, you guys are the ones that's.
Okay.
Like the president needs to stand up. Oh, here, Jerry. There we go. Oh, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I just think that, so now, congratulations. So proud of you all, very proud of you. Very proud of you.
Congratulations and amazing. Fantastic.
All right. Wonderful to have two young men in the village of Brownfield. And hopefully they'll get more coverage of positive work that they are doing, as well as others. So the next item on our agenda is item C, to discuss and accept presentation of our 2021 audit. And who's seeing that?
Derek, you want to say a few words before Jordan?
Sure, so Jordan Dave is going to do the audit presentation, talk about goes into doing the audit basically from his perspective. He is a principal at Clifton Larson Allen. And then when he's finished, Tyler wanted to go over a few concerns that him and I had about the year. Basically, we had a deficit. Talk about that. So we'll take it away, Jordan.
All right, thank you, Derek. And I gotta say, I got a tough act to follow here. Going from quite a celebration, congratulations, to talk about the audit. But with that, President Montgomery and the trustees, thank you for having me this evening to discuss the results of the audit for this year. I guess there's a number of very familiar faces to me from last year's budgets for those who may not have been here last year. My name is Jordan Batum. I am a principal with CLA, your external independent auditors. And for this evening, we are here to share a summary of the audit results for the year ended December 31st, 2021. These results have been gone through with your finance committee this year in a little bit deeper level and detail, and we've discussed those items as a part.
Can somebody close the door? I don't think they know that we can. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so for the agenda this evening, really kind of break it down into those few key pieces and then talk a little bit about the scope of work. So what goes into an audit and how do we get to the results that are issued in terms of the opinions that we issue as your external auditor, as well as that financial statement document that is prepared with the support and approval of management. We'll talk about those results. There are governance communications that I will go through. Those governance communications are included in a formal letter that was included in your packet. I will summarize the information for you here this evening, as well as make sure to take any questions or comments that the board have. And at any time, I know I have it on there as a specific item, but if there's a time where you'd like to ask a question or clarification, please just jump right in. I'm happy to take those questions as they arise. So as we move into the scope of work, on the next slide, what we were engaged to do was to perform an audit of the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021. So as a part of that, there are two reports that we are asked to issue that are included in that financial statement. One is our independent auditor's report. What that report states is that we have been able to perform our audit, and that that work that we performed supports the information that is included in the financial statements, and that those financial statements are materially correct based on the testing that we did as a part of our audit. So it's not absolute assurance. We don't look at every transaction, but we do look at transactions that we consider to be quantitatively, so dollar amounts, more qualitatively. There's a specific circumstance that we may come across that would require us to look at something maybe smaller than we normally would. We would consider those as a part of supporting the opinion that we issue. The other report that we issue, and this is because the village is a recipient of federal and state grant dollars, is a report on internal control or financial reporting and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. We're asked to do that extra layer of testing and audit work and in accordance with those government auditing standards, which really what that is asking us to do is to consider internal controls related to the processing of a transaction, the likelihood that an error may be detected or corrected and timely basis as a result of reviews in the process. So we think about an example of that being a disbursement that's being made, a requisition will be made, it'll be, the invoice will be received, that invoice is approved and submitted to your business office for processing. The business office will review that invoice, the account coding and the approval, and then determine that it is appropriate for processing for payment all the way to you receiving that disbursement listing for approval at your level. So we look at those controls in the process to have a good understanding as to how is the village handling those day-to-day transactions. And if we come across anything as part of performing an audit that relates to internal controls, we will share that with you as a part of our findings. And I will go through some of those here tonight. So as we move forward on the financial audit results, I am happy to say that we are in a position where we will be issuing an unmodified or clean opinion. So what that means is that we were able to perform testing to a level that allows us to provide our opinion that the financial statements as they're presented are reasonably stated in all material aspects with generally accepted accounting principles. So really, we're working very closely with Derek in his role as the finance director, as well as Tyler in his role, and even Nate gets pulled in every once in a while. So we really cover a lot of the individuals in the management team to have these discussions and really gain an understanding as to the type of transactions that you're entering into, and understand those transactions is how they relate to the village and what you're trying to accomplish, whether it be on it from a strategic plan or from a budgetary or operational plan. So the second report that I had mentioned related to our audit is the independent auditor's report on internal control over compliance and financial reporting. And the good news is we didn't have any compliance matters that came up as far as state statutes may relate in terms of in relation to the audit that we performed within the scope of the financial statement audit. We do have a few items that I am going to cover related to recommendations and internal control related to 2021 that we've discussed with your management team. And I will let them highlight planned corrective action and those types of things once we get to that point, so that they have their ability to share what they're doing on their side as well to kind of work on these recommendations.
Yeah, just a quick question. These are internal control concerns for 2021. Were these repeats from 2020?
They will, yes.
Okay.
So as we continue forward, so those internal control matters that we have there's three of them in particular that I would highlight. One is the preparation of financial statements. And this one is not necessarily uncommon to see for municipalities the size of the village. We are often asked as your auditors to assist in the preparation of those financial statements. There are ways that this can be mitigated on a go-forward basis as it relates to the mitigation of certain audit adjustments that we may propose as a result of our work, as well as management's review of those financial statements when we don't have those audit adjustments that we're proposing, as it relates to reviewing those statements with a disclosure checklist. That disclosure checklist, really what it is saying, is that financial statement complete in terms of the requirements that are set forth by the standards board. So there's a process to work towards. Again, that particular item is not something that is uncommon for our village or size. Comment 2 related to segregation of duties. Again, this is an item that I will highlight, and there are ways to work towards mitigation with this comment. But Derek, in his role as your finance director, needs to have significant accessibility to our accounting software. And at times we'll need to be able to prepare, review, and post transactions within that system. As auditors, ideally, we really like to see some of those processes segregated in terms of responsibility, so that there are various eyes on any particular transaction. Typically, what we find that this is related to is journal entries that are posted within the financial accounting software that may take certain numbers from one account or fund and move those transactions to another portion of your ledger. It wouldn't necessarily be related to your cash receiving process, your cash disbursement process, or payroll process. Those typically have some controls related to them in terms of having multiple sets of eyes on them for approval and posting. And then the third comment, and I don't know that this would be surprising to the group because we are talking about 2021 and the timeliness of the financial statements. We do bring that up, given we are past the calendar year end. We are working with Tyler and Derek on a plan to ensure that the financial statements are going to be issued by September 30th, which that's a key deadline for the village in terms of that is when your rating agencies for your bonds would be looking for that document to post to the municipal regulatory website where that information would be shared for your bondholders. So they do accept draft information, but ideally you would be having this posted as in final audit form at that time. So with that, I think those are the biggest three items in terms of the items for discussion this evening. I do have some other items that I'd like to run through, but honestly, they kind of incorporate some of the information that we've just discussed. So I'd like to take a moment just to see if there's any additional questions on those items.
And I call you Derek, I know you're George. Any questions? You got this presentation in finance or some portion of it? Okay. Trustee Quirk or Trustee Booker, any questions?
No, from my perspective, we went through that in finance. It's the same level of detail as we're going through tonight. So nothing new for me.
Trustee Quirk?
No questions.
All right, well, we'll move forward. So the governance communications, and again, this relates to, there's a 4-page letter in here that's addressed from us as the auditors to you as use board members and governance. And really what this document highlights in summary is a lot of the audit results that are going through. So there's certain items that I will just mention that we've been through that discussion. I won't reiterate those, but for certain items will provide a little bit of context. So for accounting policies, just in case, as you're looking at this information and you want to have a little bit better understanding of what goes behind why a transaction or a balance is presented the way it is, no one of the financial statements contains those details. It's going to be fairly high level, but it will give you a reasonable understanding as to what is happening with that particular set of balances or transactions. There were no new accounting policy or standards that were implemented for this year. So if you took 2021 and compared it to 2020, they would be very similar in form, obviously with updated content for the current fiscal year. And then when we say no transactions entered into with the lack authoritative guidance, what we're referring to there is in the nature and course of your operations and or your carrying out your strategic plan. There aren't accounting standards there aren't any accounting standards that are not going to be in support of the way that information is provided to you in that document. So the standards provided us an understanding of how to record transactions. They're presented that way in the financial statements. Accounting estimates, what I typically like to just highlight here is in those financial statements, there are estimates that are made in order to bring those financial statements to a close. There are certain estimates that no matter how long you leave the records open, you're trying to hit a little bit of a moving target. For example, I use this one because it is one that's well known by governance and by board, is the village's participation in the Wisconsin retirement system or your pension plan. So it's that benefit that's afforded your employees related to that defined benefit pension plan. And with that estimate, we gave information straight from the Wisconsin retirement system that is subject to audit as well as evaluation by the plan's actuaries to determine whether the plan itself is in a sound financial position. So a sound financial position being if they have collected more than they would expect to pay out over the life of the plan, you would have a pension asset. If they were not collecting enough on a per period payroll basis, you would have a liability, and you as a employer that participates in the plan, you would receive a share of the overall plan's position, whether it's an asset or a liability. The one thing I will say here is Wisconsin has done a very good job of managing that plan and that system. We are, as of these financial statements, and for, you'll see at 22 as well, we're sitting in a healthy pension asset position, meaning that if we look out in time and we project out how much we anticipate we need to pay out to our retirees and future retirees, the assets that are in trust as of today would be sufficient to make those payments over that time. So how does that relate down to the municipal level? Because that asset isn't something that's available to you as a board, it's protected, it's in trust for the employees. It provides some reasonable assurance that there won't be as significant fluctuations in those employer and employee contribution requirements. So what they're trying to do is stabilize the amount that you need to contribute on a per payroll basis as the employee and the employer to ensure the funded status of that plan. So that's a detailed example, but it's probably one of the most significant estimates that you would see in your records. So as we move forward, in the financial statements, we don't note any particularly sensitive disclosures. They're very clear and consistent with what we would expect for a municipality in Wisconsin, reporting under the Government Accounting Standards Board. Difficulties performing the audit. This is the timeliness of financial reporting. We touched on that. That's something that we just were required to report here, so you kind of hear it again. Uncorrected immaterial misstatements. So what I highlight here is from time to time as we perform our audit procedures, we may come across a misstatement that isn't material to the user. So it's small enough in dollar amount that we would just note it. And if management decided to pass, we pass on that and move forward because it would not, we don't believe it would impact the user of that information. So in this case, we had two of them, fairly minor. One related to your OPEB allocation of the OPEB liability currently all sits within your general activities versus being spread across the utilities based on wages. That's been consistent with how the village has shown over the years. Should their individual decide to make that change going forward, we can apply that against, we can remove that as an item going forward. So that's an example of that there. From a corrected material misstatement standpoint, this is one of the items that I mentioned that feeds into the comment relating to the preparation of financial statements. We did have in 21 a number of items that we proposed adjustment to. Once the board has accepted the audit results, we'll provide the finalized documents, and that information is contained in the reports. We will provide you with what those adjustments are. But as we kind of talk through these items, and Derek, I don't know if you kind of have anything you'd like to state there in relation to the audit adjustments and kind of things you were working to clean up this year as you entered your role, may be beneficial to the board.
Sure. I took over here in July and.
Is your microphone?
Is it on?
Yes. Okay.
So basically what he's saying is just there was a few adjustments that they did that ideally we would have done before they came in. And hopefully we get those corrected for next year. And that's the goal.
So as Derek's transitioned into his role with the village, one of the things that as we get post this audit is we'll take a look at what those adjustments are and make a work to have a plan to try to avoid those going forward.
Derek, do you have an example, maybe one example of what one of those adjustments had to be?
Some of them were, some of them weren't that big of a deal. Like there's 4 quarters of utility billing. And I don't think it's split between year ends. So the one that comes out in March is 2/3 and following year 1/3. And they want you to do an entry to allocate between years type of thing. And I just don't, it just wasn't done.
So it's done all in 1 year? Or,
There was still 4 quarters worth of billing done, so the total adjustment was minor, but it's something where the first quarter of 2021 would have been partly 2020 in the last, or right now. And then the final quarter, we would have had to do another entry for the, as the first quarter of this year, or 2022 would have been 1 month worth of 20.
I think I got that.
So there's just, it's,
We have to get it. I
yeah,
just thought if you could give us an example so that people could understand what some of those adjustments were.
Yeah, another way that I might share with the board would be, there's, when we think about the accounting process, there's kind of forming processes that feed financial information. You have payroll, you have general disbursements, then you have the receipt of cash, whether that be from property taxes, grants, fines and forfeitures, and other charges for services you may have. On the cash of getting them in, getting them recorded, that was something that was cleaned up from last year. You'll notice that the bank reconciliation piece where we had a number of transactions that we posted from a cash perspective are not there, are not in this audit summary. So that process is working much better. There is an accounting concept where we say, let's forget about just, where cash is important, but we also try to reflect revenues and expenses based on when activity occurs rather than when cash is received and or dispersed. And the adjustments that we have are more related to those, which are meant for that one time at the end of the year that you're required to perform that kind of formal financial close reporting process. So it was more in that area that we had our proposed adjustments versus having them not only there, but also having cash adjustments that we were proposing in relation to the bank reconciliation process that you would have noted from last year's report. So, kind of moving through, no disagreements with management as we work through the process. Everybody very cooperative. A lot of hard work went into this. I know that the team had to at times go back and say, okay, where's the information? Because we've had some transition, put that information together and provide that to us. That is not a small task and or feat for the group. And as your auditors, anytime we're proposing adjustments, it means we're asking more questions or we may be digging deeper. So the team was very, very responsive to those questions. They were responsive to providing information. So to that, I thank them in this process, because it's a lot of work when you're trying to provide that information for information you may not have actually accounted for. On the consultation with other accountants, there were none that were noted. The management representations, what this really reflects is we will ask Eric and Tyler in their roles to provide us with signatures that basically indicates in that letter that if we ask for information as a part of the audit, it was provided in its complete form to the best of their knowledge, so that we could make the appropriate conclusions based on that information that was provided to us. So with that, that is kind of the formal comments and remarks. I think you may have some additional commentary.
Yep.
You may have.
Yep. 2 comments. One, if you turn to page 62, this would be kind of the best way that I can articulate it for you. This is on page 62. This is the balance sheet of governmental funds. I just want to call out TID 4. This was something that I knew, coming up, we would have to talk a little bit more with the board. And now that we are fully staffed and have a year acclimated, I did think coming up would be a good time to go more into our tax incremental financing districts and talk more about the financial status, particularly TID 4. You can see here in TID 4, if you look on the bottom, the total fund balance, TID 4 is at a deficit of almost $5.5 million. We'll go through a pro forma at a future meeting, but that's projected to get worse. So as an accounting practice, we have to have something fill that deficit. Right now, we have the general fund balance is doing that. So if you look at the general fund column, that's that first column, you'll see that under fund balances, non-spendable, we have a 5.4, 5.5 million that's assigned to help TID 4 out. This means for the unassigned of the general fund, we're only at about 1.7 million remaining. We're very close to being non-compliant to our financial policies based on the 15% of our general fund reserves when you compare it to the total expenditures. And so that's something that we want to be very careful about. And as TID 4's deficit grows, I'm projecting us to not be in compliance. So my objective is to go more in depth to show you as a board why that's the case. This has been occurring sometime, but I just want to be transparent that if we don't get a plan into place, I'll just put you, or just state that the deficit of TID 4 is going to grow beyond 7.2 million even, and that's our total fund balance. So I will go through with you at a future board meeting what that means and to start articulating some options. That will be discussed on the March 6th village board meeting. I'll be inviting Brad from Beard to help Derek and I with that presentation with you as we go into a little bit more specifics on TID 4 and our general fund balance, because we're going to have to put a plan into place. The other thing I want to show you is,
Before you move forward, can you just, for information purposes, TID 4 covers
the original village.
Okay.
The other is 2 pages later on page 64. This is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for governmental funds. I just wanted to note that if you look at the general fund net change in fund balances, it operated at about a $500,000 deficit. Since Derek nor I were here, we wanted to just do some research to inform the board why that was. While some of the revenues did not meet projections, the village also exceeded expenditures for the year. And in the memo, I won't go into detail unless there's any specific questions, but in the memo, to be transparent to the community and you as a board, I identified some of the reasons why that was the case. So those were just the 2 things that as I went through the final financial statements, I just wanted to provide information to you as a board.
And are there questions? I don't know if Trustee Booker or Trustee Quirk have any questions. And just for clarification, to my knowledge, this is the first time this has been brought to the board in terms of some of those deficits that you've identified. Now, I've never seen. Trustee Booker.
Yeah, I mean, it's all articulated very well in the audit. I'm aware of it. I was aware of it before the finance when we kind of generally talked through it. So we had some discussions at finance about this. I'm glad it's going to be scheduled so we can talk about how, or Tyler and his group can talk about how they plan to address this issue. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, if there's no questions, I just want to give a general thank you to Jordan and Michael. Barr, is that right? Okay, yeah. Tremendous help. Thank you so much. Derek, coming in and, with everything that he's faced these first 6 months, I appreciate your help to get this done as quickly as possible. Derek knows that his #1 goal for the 22 financial audit is to meet that September deadline. And Derek will do everything in his power to make sure that happens. But, I just want I always think Derek's been a tremendous help for the village, so thank you, Derek, for your help in getting this completed.
Thank you. And as Tyler said, I want to echo that. And I know anytime you come in to a situation that you got to do a lot of cleanup, but it just helps. It's good to know where you are, so you know what you need to do, so you can move forward. So we need a motion to. Trustee Quirk.
Just to confirm, Tyler, on March 6th, we're talking about TID number 4 and also the reasons for the financial difficulties. We're also discussing all those reasons.
It's gonna be more centered on the TIDs themselves. So it will be discussion of the TIDs and the general fund reserves.
Other questions?
I guess I have a question related to, as we close out 2022, are there any significant signs, just from looking at the books, that we should also be aware of? Because this is 2021.
Yeah, so Derek, perfect timing. Derek, had some, did some look at that today. I feel pretty good as far as the expenditure side that was managed and controlled within the budget. The one difficulty on the revenue side was the assessment here on the marketplace.
Yeah.
We did the chargeback process where, because of that assessment here, we were down about $600,000 and some thousand. Through the chargeback, we were able to get about 2/3 of that revenue back. But right now we are out $225,000 in property taxes. So that's pretty much one of the major revenue items that we're probably going to be coming under budget. The only other thing that we'll have to solidify is hotel tax revenue, which we'll have a better idea in a few weeks. But
that hasn't really fully recovered since the pre-COVID days.
yeah, so when we do future budgets, we're going to have to amend that number. I think it's been a little optimistic compared to where we would hope they would be. But so I'm anticipating revenue to be a little bit down, but I feel pretty good we'll be below or on the right side on expenditures.
Just one other comment I have. I know the government's been talking about revenue sharing. What is the history of the village getting revenue sharing from the state?
For decades, we've been stuck at the same shared revenue number like all other municipalities. That's the number. There is actually some optimism for the first time in a while, but that number could grow. So that would be some good news, but we'll have to see what kind of, it's not just going to be given out for free. There's going to be some stipulations with that. So, but it's been a long time since they've adjusted that number.
Other questions? If not, we need a motion to accept the 2021 financial audit.
I'll make that motion to accept the 2021 audit.
It's been moved by Trustee Johnson and seconded by Trustee Thompson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the to consider approval of purchase firearms for the department. I think I saw Chief on yeah, so is Chief presenting this or?
Yes.
Okay.
He's at a conference right now, so he's taking some time off to present.
I wanted to teach.
Chief, you're muted. Are you able to unmute yourself?
He's connected.
Perhaps if he's trying to connect to the audio, maybe we skip that item 5 and go back and forth. That's okay.
Okay. Item E is to consider approval of transfer of Class B intoxicating liquor and Class B fermented malt beverages liquor or license held by Z Sports Club to Queen City Sports Bar located at 8777 North Deerwood Drive. Is there anyone here representing them, or is it anyone online?
Don't believe so.
Yes. Okay, so that was in our packet, and this is basically somebody's taking ownership of these will be called Green City Sports Bar. Any questions?
You have a question. Hey, have you had an opportunity to, you know?
I did meet with the new owner. She's indicated that she's pursuing her occupancy and has applied for that with both the fire department and our inspection department. Generally indicated she was looking to operate kind of a similar theme and style as these. This is her first venture into bar ownership. She works otherwise for Northwestern Mutual. And she's excited to get open as soon as possible. Was trying to target opening by the Super Bowl. I don't think that's quite realistic. But she thought it was a great location and was really excited to be a part of the community. She is splits her time, I believe, between Racine and a condo on the northwest side by North Bridge Lakes.
Anyone else? And as I said, this is just the transfer of basically ownership, same type of operation. And this license will just transfer until it expires. And then they renew it in July. June, right, and so they would have to re-up. Okay. If there are no other questions, we do need a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the transfers of the Class B liquor license plus the Class B fermented malt beverage currently held by Z Sports Club to Queen City Sports Bar located at 8777 North Deerwood Drive.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by trustee Thompson and seconded by trustee Woods. I didn't give an opportunity, trustee Booker or trustee Quirk, did you have any questions?
No,
No.
All right, all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries, so that transfer has been approved.
Yeah, it has been for a while. So there's a resident that lives upstairs that will stay. But the restaurant and bar have been closed, I'd say maybe at least a month, if not longer.
Yeah.
They were operating limited hours for a long time prior to that too.
But they kept their liquor license open. Yeah. Is Chief ready? Okay.
He's back.
Chief?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, so as you'll see in the packet, the request for the firearms purchase. As you may recall, last December, we placed the $25,000 in the capital improvement plan to purchase the firearms. And not to get into great detail, but you were aware that we were having there were some issues with the firearms in other communities, in particular Milwaukee PD. And so the best decision, I think, was to replace our current firearms, which would have had to have been replaced in the next 4 years anyway. But due to some of the issues, it was prudent to make that switch now. And so we're requesting approval to purchase. You'll see that it's comes in under the $25,000. I will make a note. You'll see that we're requesting to buy them from Ray O'Haron, which is $600 more. And the reason we are doing that, making that request, is we have worked with them in the past. They will be able to get those firearms to us quicker. And in my view, that extra $600 is well spent the quicker that we can get these firearms switched out and not have any potential issues with our current firearms. So with that, I will take any questions.
Chief, in the memo, it indicates there's trade-in value for the old guns.
Yes. So as you'll see in the quotes, the guns themselves are over 25,000, but with the trade-in value, they will come in under the 25,000.
Okay. All right. Questions? Trustee Owens?
I had a question in regards to, I guess, probably like the bidding process. Now, were these considered bids or not? And the reason why I ask that is because you're not going with the low bid, you're going with one that's higher, $600. You know, and I understand your reasoning with that, for doing it, but I'm just wondering, like, when the bids and that was put out, was there any flexibility for that, or were you simply price or how was it bid?
I'm getting a little feedback from somebody that's got their audio connected, but we submitted to the local dealers the specifications for the firearms, and then we received those bids back from those dealers that put a bid in.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but normally when you go out for a bid, it's like low bid that meets specifications. And it seems like the other vendor, this Chrysler, they met it, but because they were lower, but then you want to go to rate other guy, $600 more. I was just wondering. I guess I'm looking at it in terms of, purchasing. It's like no bid that meets specifications. And if you don't have the other factors in there, it's not like it's a request proposal. Request proposal, we have a little more latitude to do that. It's not only just a low bid. It's low bid that meets specifications. So I guess maybe I need to ask, how that works in the ground deal. Because it's a little bit different. If you understand what I'm saying, I mean, I understand, that they had, you had worked with this Ray O'Haron in the past, but from the purchasing world I come from, you can't really use that if you didn't specify. And I'm just asking, how that works in the village.
Chief, if I may, I don't have the purchasing policy in front of me or the financial policies, but if I remember the language, I think there is some language that states that you don't need to use the low bidder if there is a different business reason for it. So I think what Chief is saying is because of the fact that he can get the guns sooner, that's justified for that. But as you as a board, this is why it's brought to you as a board that if you would disagree with that motion and would want to take, the lower, that's up to you. That's, just as staff and as the police chief, that's him bringing forward his recommendation.
Yeah, and I understand. I just don't want to be where the low bid finds out and they can protest.
They can, yeah. This isn't a construction project that requires, there's no formal RFP process. This is just a purchase of equipment for the community. So they just solicited quotes from different vendors. And as I understand what you're saying is because there's potentially some, issues the longer we use the current equipment, it's just ask that the body go with the higher of the two quotes, but it's completely within your realm of discretion to decide either one.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to say, I don't want us to, down the line, have to respond to something from a vendor protest, because I think that they do meet the specifications, but, it's like, you understand what I'm saying, or maybe?
Yeah, I wouldn't have any legal, they wouldn't have any legal standing to legally challenge and say, well,
we were 600 cheaper, and you didn't take us, we're gonna sue you. These are just quotes for purchase of equipment. And, there's always considerations and service on the back end and how quickly you get things and the reliability provider. There's certainly things that go in past, just the bottom line price, and to the discretion of the municipality. In a public construction, our formal RFP process governed by state statute, that's a little different, but even in those situations, it's to be awarded to the lowest qualified bidder, and sometimes you get crazy low bids, but the contractor has no reasonable expectation of being able to deliver on what they promise. So even in a situation that's governed by state statute, you don't always necessarily have to pick the lowest number.
So Tyler was correct when he said that our internal policy does not state that we have to. What the lowest.
That's all I'm asking. I just want to make sure. So, you get what you're looking for, and that you don't have this downline where you have somebody complaining about who provided you the material or the guns or whatever, but yet you didn't take this. So that's all I'm saying. Just want to protect the building.
All right. Other questions? If not, this is already, the amount has already been approved in terms of the 25,000. You do need a motion to approve the purchase. Is there a motion?
Make the motion to approve the purchase of the Glock firearms.
It's been moved by trustee Thompson and seconded by trustee Owens.
Sorry, point of clarification, can we just friendly amendment to add in purchase of firearms from?
Yeah. And it's Ray O'Hare.
I move that we purchase the Glock firearms from Ray O'Hare.
And
I said,
all right, so it's been moved by trustee Thompson and seconded by trustee Owens to approve the purchase of Glock firearms from Ray O'Hare. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, chief.
Thanks.
That concludes our agenda items. Now, we do need a motion to recess into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19.851E for the following reasons. Liberating the investment of public funds as to which competitive bargaining reasons require closed session. Creation and funding of tax incremental financing district number 5. Is there a motion?
I move that we go into closed session.
Is there a second? Been moved by trustee Thompson, second by trustee Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
We will go into closed session. We will excuse all of the audience, and trustee Johnson, can you turn the mics on?